And we all know that play is the best way to learn.
Absolutely. I love playing.
So these games don't always need to be super complicated. Division games can be really effective because they're building that fluency, which is just repeated practice. And we talk about fluency when it comes to addition and our friends to 10, and we talk about fluency when it comes to multiplication and knowing those times tables really quickly and easily and being able to recall them. But the aim is to get our kids to be able to do that with their division facts too, because in the long run, it's going to make maths so much easier for them. Welcome to Rainbow Skies for Teachers, the go-to show dedicated to teachers who want to make a big difference in education. Whether you're in your first few years or well into your teaching career, we are here to inspire, support, and empower you with bite-sized tips, simple strategies, and the motivation to lead an education revolution, one classroom at a time.
We're Ashley and Alicia from Rainbow Sky Creations, two Aussie teachers who love all things teaching and learning. We are here to help you thrive as you work toward making an impact in your students' lives while loving your life as a teacher.
We are here to help you bring joy, simplicity, and creativity into your classroom on the daily, because
there are rainbows ahead, my friend, and together we're unstoppable.
Let's get into today's episode.
Rainbow Sky Creations acknowledges the traditional owners of the land we have recorded this podcast on, the Dharawal and Whadjuk Noongar people. We pay our respects to their elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander cultures.
We are back with Rainbow Skies for Teachers. Hello, everybody.
Hello, welcome to this episode. I'm looking forward to having a chat about what we're going to be chatting about. It's a bit mysterious, isn't it?
I know, it is a bit mysterious, but I think that if you've seen the title, you're going to know what this episode's about.
I forget that. Some people are really actually proactive and they look and see what the title is to see if they actually want to have a listen to us. We're going to dive into a discussion about division. I feel like this number operation gets a bit of a bad rap.
It does get a bad rap, doesn't it? It doesn't have good feelings. No one has good feelings towards division. I don't know. I think I don't really have great feelings towards it. Do you?
I feel like it's grown on me over the years. I feel like it's the underdog. It's the one, the outlier that just gets left behind and people just look at it and go, oh, how could you do that to us? When really it's just trying to make life easier for us, just making things fair and equal with sharing and distributing.
Listen to us waffle on around. Alicia and I both are big fans of Survivor, and I feel like division is that goat, the operation that just gets dragged through to the end. Like it's got to be there. It has a purpose, but we don't give it enough attention.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. I think kids look at it, and I used to see it in my class. I would be like, oh, we're going to do a really great lesson today. And they're looking at you questionably when you're starting to hype up a lesson of, I don't believe you, miss. And you're like, we're going to do division. We're going to do sharing. And you just see their faces and no way. How are you going to make this fun, miss? That's what we want to help you with today. We want to give you some ideas to make division not so daunting. And for those kids who just close off with maths, even that mention of division can just make them go even further into their little shells of, I don't want to do maths at all, have a really negative feeling towards it. So let's change that narrative.
Yeah, let's talk about some fun ideas. Now, as we said, division can be quite a tricky skill for kids. And that's fair. It is a tricky skill. But if we connect it to their multiplication skills, we're already one step in the right direction. And then on top of that, if we put some of these things into place that we know help kids when they're learning math, that is going to help too. So let's dive into some great ideas to spice up your division lessons. And we're going to start by talking about games. We are huge advocates of games because they are fun. They get your kids really engaged and they buy in on the topic because they get to play. And we all know that play is the best way to learn.
Absolutely. I love playing.
So these games don't always need to be super complicated. Division games can be really effective because they're building that fluency, which is just repeated practice. And we talk about fluency when it comes to addition and our friends to 10, and we talk about fluency when it comes to multiplication and knowing those times tables really quickly and easily and being able to recall them. But the aim is to get our kids to be able to do that with their division facts too, because in the long run, it's going to make maths so much easier for them. An easy one that we like to play is a spinner game. If you have been around here for a while, you will know that you can easily create a spinner by getting a lead pencil, and putting a paperclip underneath it and just flicking the paperclip around the pencil. You have to decide on what the students are going to divide by. So say they're dividing by 4, they put numbers that are divisible by 4 in the spinner, and then they've got to work out what the answer is. So 36 divided by 4, and then they decide on the answer. Now, we've got lots of different printables that you can use that will save you a load of time with creating games like this. But you can get your kids to create these spinners, and they can even make their own games if you want to.
Definitely, especially with those division sums that kind of meld together, like some of your 3s, your 2s, and your 4s. You can find some values that are divisible by the same number. But we've specifically made different templates to make it versatile for the learners in your classroom, because you've got some kids who are still going to be mastering dividing by 2 or dividing by 3. And then you've got those who are ready to go to that next level and start to see the patterns and may mix it up, but extending them with the dividing by 7, 9, 11, whatever it might be. By putting it in a game format, it's already not so confronting for those learners, and it creates that element of fun. And then if you've got those really competitive students, they will just encourage each other to just get better and quicker and faster. You notice that has a ripple effect on your classroom in a positive way, because they're all just super hyped and excited to be the best they can be.
It's a really easy way to differentiate too. If you've got some kids that are working on dividing by 2, that's great. But then you've got other kids that are working on dividing by 7 or 8 or 9, a lot trickier numbers, then that's great too, because everyone's being catered for. You don't have a child sitting there doing something that comes automatically to them while another one is struggling. You're really able to meet them at their level without it being too much extra work for you as the teacher, because we know it's not easy to sit down and make sure that every single child in your class is catered for. So that's one way that we really like to add that differentiation in, is getting the kids to be working on different games all at the same time. Same game, but different numbers.
I used to always like to say to the kids, like, who loves their timetables? And you'd have these kids who'd be like, yes, I love my 2s timetables or my whatever it might be. And the kid would be like, I know my 9s timetables. Look and watch me do it with my fingers. And I used to just go to them, if you love your times tables, you're just going to love division as well, because they're buddies. And I think that's the thing. We've made the games in a way as well that they can be practicing their multiplication at the same time, or their skip counting. So they understanding what numbers can be divisible by certain numbers. I think a game is such a great icebreaker for any maths reluctant students. So you got to have them in your classroom.
I was just thinking then, you could ask the kids, what is your favorite times table? And get them to start with those division games too. Like, kids love the 11s, don't they? They just love the 11 times tables because they're super easy. But that's a really good place to start, because they're having success with what they're doing. And if they find that particular one easy, they're going to be able to pick up and make those connections, exactly what you're talking about, Alicia, making those connections between multiplication and division. And the more they make those connections, the easier it is going to be.
Yeah, absolutely. What's our second one, Ash? I feel this is your wheelhouse.
The next one is all about getting crafty. And I love a maths craft. Like, even as the kids get a little bit older, I don't know, are you with me on that one?
I feel like because it's a novelty, I feel like we reach a point where we go past the early years and it's crafts must die. And it's, you know what, we've got 10-year-olds, we've got 42-year-olds who like to do crafts. So don't take away that opportunity, because you're going to be using different parts of your brain, which is going to help you become a better learner. We should allow students to have the opportunity to use their hands and not just always it be cognitive. They've got to have the opportunity to use their gross motor skills and fine motor skills.
Definitely. And by doing the process of the craft, hopefully it will help imprint on their minds and make the concept easier. So this craft involves 2 paper plates. It's really simple. You get a paper plate, which is going to be your top paper plate, and the kids need to start by dividing it into 12 sections. Then they chop those sections. This is really hard to explain being on a podcast, but just bear with me until we get to the end.
You're doing great.
So they chop the little sections into little tabs. So basically your paper plate becomes like a flower with petals that kind of move. On the inside of the paper plate, they put the number that they're dividing by, and then they skip count by that number around the outside. So say they're dividing by 5. On each little petal or each little tab, they skip count 5, 10, 15, 20, all the way up to 60. Then they glue their top paper plate onto their bottom paper plate, and underneath each tab, they put the answer to the division question. So 5 divided by 10 is 2. 5 divided by 60 is 12. And this becomes a little self-correcting game tool that they can play with each other. Now, we will put a link to these in the show notes, a reel where we've created them and shows you exactly how we create them. If you're thinking, I'm a visual person, I just need to see this.
That would be me.
Yeah, I don't know if I did a great job of explaining it. I'm here looking at the picture thinking it's very obvious to me, but I also created the activity. So we will put a link in the show notes. But basically, it's a craft with 2 paper plates. The kids practice their division. Again, it's easily differentiated because you can have those kids that are working on dividing by 5 doing that, and then the kids that are working on dividing by 9 doing that. So they can do all different ones. And it's a good one for them to take home too, to get their family to test them.
Yeah. And then you like pair it up with an activity. You get some number cards or you get some playing cards and you get them practicing it. And as well, I like to think of it as a self-correcting tool, right?
Yes.
Where the kids might be getting their counters and they're actually making it. They need to see that concrete. Like I'm just thinking of like my year 2s, my year 3s, some of them, even year 4s still needed that concrete because they hadn't created that automaticity with their divisions, facts. And this is just a really nice tool that they've made it, they've created it, and then they can keep referring to it. And you just see that element of them just knowing they've got a bit of a buffer zone. Like when you feel that you've got your little life vest and you go, okay, I'm going to stay afloat in the water. And the more confident you get, then you go, okay, I'm ready to take these off. I'm ready to flex my swimming muscles or division skills. So this is that kind of craft that's there to support your learners. And you're going to have some kids who will be like, that was fun, but I don't need it. I've nailed my division facts by 7, whatever it might be.
Yeah, and then you're going to have others that find it a really helpful tool. And we're teaching them too along the way that it's important to use tools and use these concrete materials as we go to help support them. That's one step of the learning process, and we're modeling that to them.
Absolutely. The next one is like the super important one, and we've touched on it, is the golden inverse rule, that it's essential for students to know and understand that division is just the inverse operation on multiplication. Okay. It's still you're grouping, but you're going into that sharing element of it. So therefore, we must teach these skills together. If you're there teaching division, you're going to be touching on multiplication. And usually we know kids find it easier to embrace multiplication. So when you're planning your term, you're probably going to start with multiplication and meld division in and just follow on from it. I used to just pick a 3-week block and we're just smashing out multiplication and division. And that's what we're doing over those 3 weeks. You know, I found the best way to model this to students was doing fact family activities, getting them to see that, oh, I've got my multiplication sum. Now I just manipulate it and put the answer at the beginning and change the symbol. Now I've got a division and the numbers are still the same, but just in a different order. And that was just a really great way for students to grasp that concept of, I used to just say, they're a married couple, husband and wife, whatever it might be. They're a family, mummy, daddy, baby. Of course, you're going to up level that to whatever grade that you're teaching, but it's using storytelling and creating that visual for them to see that. And then if your kids are great at skip counting, I used to always be like, gosh, if you know how to skip count, you know how to do division, you've got this. So just making it really fluid and easier than what they think, like tricking their brain into thinking, actually, a lot of this, you just got to remember to flip that switch and go, okay, I'm in sharing mode now.
Yes, it's about creating those connections for the kids and sometimes explicitly making those connections for them so they can see it. Like kids don't get the connections until we're really clear with them. And then that's when we can start to see those moments. Do you remember in Dubai when we used to do big maths?
Oh, yes. Yes.
So there was this fun, fancy song. And if you're teaching in the UK, you may have heard of this big maths beat that song before. And the kids, it would be like a speed timed test. It was either flip it or switch it. But basically, you're just either flipping the numbers or you're just switching the numbers. You can use either term. It's just another way to explain the idea of fact families.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure there are plenty of activities and games that you can do where you're melding the two together. I even like to do this with a storyboard for maths. I know sometimes it can be a bit boring to kids. You get that piece of paper, you get them to fold it into quadrants, into fourths, and you go, okay, up the top here, I want you to, in the middle, you pick your multiplication sum. And they're like, oh, okay, this is great. And then you go, all right, show me what that is in division. And then you'd be like, okay, if you had that in division, can you write a story about it? So you're getting them to go beyond and apply that skill into their everyday real life of going, oh yeah, I know that time like when mum makes 6 cookies, but me, my brother, like I want 2 and he wants 4, but I know that's not fair. It allows them to bring the real life. So if you're ever finding it hard to teach these concepts, like you get them to story tell it, because a lot of the time we get roadblocks with multiplication and division and pretty much any form of maths when it's put into that language, that written form. And whenever we've talked about standardized testing and NAPLAN, we always go to kids, hey, you know what? We know you're great mathematicians, but you've also got to be really good at understanding and comprehending words and knowing what words they use for maths, because they're going to try and trick you. And that's the thing, is that you give them that opportunity too, by having that discussion of this is what a kind of word problem would sound like for multiplication, and this is what it would sound like for division. Here's our clues for our sharing and dividing. So I find that's always an easy way too to touch on the inverse or look at skip counting when you give them that opportunity to present it, how many different ways they can show it, really.
Yeah, and that way too, you're actually connecting with a different type of learner in your classroom as well, which is why I really love that idea of that activity, because we need to cater for all the different learners in our classroom. Not all of them are going to love playing games. Not all of them are going to be visual learners.
That's so true. Now, we know there's power in peer mentoring in teams, and that's what our next one is about, partnering up. Tell us about it, Ash.
Yeah, so getting the kids to work together, so encouraging peer mentoring or just working together in pairs to play games or to complete activities, because they're learning from each other in that way. And I know we spoke about a couple of weeks ago, I think it was, that once a child can really explain the concept, that's when they're hitting that mastery. So working with each other, learning how someone else might solve the problem or answer the question can be really valuable. So in come the games that we were talking about again. You can play spinner games, you could play games with cards. As I said, we've got a whole heap of them that we will make sure that we link in the show notes. You could pair your kids up in mixed ability pairs, friendship pairs. You could have differentiated pairs, so kids that are working at the similar sort of levels. It's completely up to you, but there's a lot of validity in getting kids to be working together and learning from each other.
Yeah, absolutely. Just make a part of your teaching toolkit, like whether it's you start your maths lesson by playing a game. I love to wrap up a maths lesson by playing a game.
Hmm.
And we love doing group work. So you have a group of students who are playing games and giving them that autonomy to pick the game that they feel they need to work on. So you might be getting the kids who are doing a flip it and divide by 9 game, and others who are working on a spin and divide game by 2s. It allows them to take some ownership. And who doesn't love picking their game? I see my kids, they go through to the game box and it's my turn to pick the game. You're like, okay, it is. Go for it. Just makes learning fun and
It
not
does
so.
make learning fun, and it makes them feel like they've got a little bit of control, because kids in the classroom, they don't have a lot of control over many things, do they?
No, they don't. And you
We even
certainly
tell
find,
them, draw your margin with a red pen.
and the kids in your class who just need to have some form of their own control as they just push against all forms of boundaries. It works both ways. So bring out the games, get the kids paired up or grouped. They can be paired up and working against another pair. That's a good test on a collaboration. As we love our games, pairing up. So give it a try if you haven't this week.
The next idea is really another sort of game hands-on activity, and that is puzzles. This is something that you're going to have to prepare in advance, but don't worry, we have got puzzles that you can already use that are pre-prepared, but they're a really good way of illustrating what division looks like and how it connects with that idea of the inverse operation of multiplication. So you have a multiplication number sentence, a division, which is the inverse, and then you have an image that explains it or illustrates it. And the idea is the students need to be able to match the 3 pairs up.
Yeah, they need to find the matching array. Isn't that even a fun discussion? Arrays, a really great concept to be teaching students on, like creating that visual on how to solve a problem by drawing the array or making the array. And I love this activity because you can up level it. So before we're talking about the storyboard and vocabulary, you can get the students then to, can you create a story to match on either side? How could you represent it another way, like through grouping? Or you might have some kids who'll be like, oh, I can do repeated subtraction, or I can show you how I skip count it. Then you can give the kids blank sheets and go, all right, do you want to make your own puzzles? Because some kids might be like, I've got this. can I make my own puzzles? And you're like, okay, make your own puzzles that we can cut up and we can get the class to do or the group to do next time. So it's allowing them to use that mastery and that teaching to then become really great at understanding that concept. Because as we know, it's going to take 200 or more hits for some students to get that concept of dividing numbers. You might feel like, oh my gosh, I've covered this so many times, but they need that repeated practice. And the kids who do have that skill really well, that's when we start adding that open-ended element. That's where we start giving the opportunity to, can you actually create a game? That's your challenge today. Can you create a division game that you think your classmates are going to like? And you'll be like, oh, all right, game on, teacher.
Yeah, they really dive into those sorts of things. We got a message from a lovely teacher named Katie who says that these sorts of puzzles, she used them in her classroom and said that they were so fantastic to use in small groups and partner centers because they were easy to set up and the kids were having fun while she was focusing on the group that she was working with. So thank you for that feedback, Katie. But she's so right. They're perfect for centers or rotations or whatever you call your maths groups if you run them in your classroom.
Yeah. And it's a great one if you've got kids who come early in the mornings and you just have like these sorts of things set up and you've got some kids who will gravitate towards that.
Yeah.
Because we all know we have a group of kids in the class who love maths. That's all they want to do is
Yeah.
maths. And they'll be the ones at that station while you look over and going, I wouldn't have picked that one for myself, but you do you, boo. You do you.
Okay, our last idea is integrating division into your warm-ups in your maths lessons. Now, this is just starting off your maths lesson. You might just throw a question out there or you're doing a bit of counting to get the kids ready and in the mood for maths. Revisiting division or tricky concepts is a great way to build that fluency and confidence in whatever the tricky concept is. So in this case, division, one great warm-up that we love to do is it's an open-ended warm-up. We actually have a free copy, so we will make sure that is linked in the show notes. But basically, you give the kids the answer. The answer is 12. What could the division question be? Now, you could have a couple of these up around the classroom on the walls and the kids go and write their answers on. You could just have one big one that you're doing on the interactive whiteboard with the whole class. You could have your kids with mini whiteboards and they're writing down their answers. Some kids might be able to come up with 10 answers. Some kids might only be able to come up with one answer, but it is a great way to get them started and to have that idea of division constantly being revisited, especially if you're in grades 3, grade 4, when they need to keep building that fluency in this area.
Yeah, absolutely. I would give you the challenge of actually just leaving it up for a day or two and just see what students add. I would have it pinned up next to the board, next to the whiteboard or on a cupboard door and be like, that's there. It's looking a bit empty. Who can add to it? And the kids can use post-it notes or just little bits of paper and just see what they come up with. And sometimes the longer you leave it, it allows those students who I feel like it's my husband kind of thinker, like your critical thinkers or the ones who just think a bit more deeply and go, I've got something that's really going to blow people's minds. While I'm just like, oh yeah, I got this. And then I'm done. I'm moving on to the next task. While the deep thinkers delve into it and go, how do I really unpack this further? So it gives those students opportunity who need time to think or to create that really great idea to present it. So I say leave it up for a day or two or a week. Who knows?
I would even encourage you if a teacher pops into your classroom, you make a deal of it. Say, oh, Mr. Smith, we've got this question up here. Could you provide us an answer that hasn't already been provided? We're putting the other teacher on the spot, but who cares? Because that's a great way for the kids to be learning from someone else and they might be able to explain it or provide something in a way that reaches other students in your classroom that you may not have.
That's it. And I love this one because you can see the students who are ready to go beyond. Are they using decimals? Are they using fractions? Are they putting it into a story? Have you got those who are just like, I just want to draw an image or whatever it might be? No answer is a wrong answer. And even if something does come up that's incorrect, I heard of this like really fun activity where you go, hey, I can see one on the board here that isn't quite correct and be like, who can spot it? And then be like, oh, this one. I'd be like, how do we make it correct? So you give them that opportunity to problem solve together. So there's so much value in this activity. That's what we're saying. There is value.
There is. So I hope that this episode has made you feel a little bit more excited about teaching division. We're excited talking about it because we're really putting in those premises of the things that we really believe here at Rainbow Sky, creating hands-on activities, making the learning fun so the kids aren't necessarily thinking, oh, I'm learning. They're just thinking about having a good time, involving play. using those concrete materials to support students. All of these things are really important to us. And that's why we came up with these particular suggestions. Alicia, do you want to give us a run through of the suggestions we made to make division fluency fun?
Yeah, let's spice up these division lessons. So, your number one is games. Then get a little bit crafty. Give it a go. Get some strips of paper, chop it up, divide it, fold up paper, whatever it might be. Remember the golden inverse rule. Division and multiplication are the best of buddies. Then partner up. Peer mentoring, peer teaching is really powerful in the classroom. Give it a go through activities, and games are a great way to embrace it. Next is puzzles, a great way to get students thinking and seeing connections and opportunity to challenge students who are ready to be challenged. And number 6, integrate it into a warm-up. And with that one, we've got our bus stop division activity, and we've linked it in the show notes where you can get a free copy right here. So yeah, go enjoy your next division lesson. It's going to be fun.
And let us know how you go. We would love to hear from you. If you use any of these activities, message us over on our socials at Rainbow Sky Creations or leave us a review. We would be super grateful if you do.
Until next time, there are rainbows ahead.
And together, we're unstoppable.